Because we have control. Hanging in there. Right now we're going through the old Q&A. Check out what all was said. I was like blitzing my... It's... Oh, here we go.
Right. Everything should
All
be
right,
good to go.
let's
And
turn it up now because the
hey,
music
everybody,
was a
thanks for
little
joining
loud.
us for our first stream here on Facebook Live. My name's Brandy Camel. I'm one of your community managers for the Diablo team. And
I'll put
on my
myself
left
up
here,
here.
Mr. Joe Shelley, one of our senior game designers.
Yes. Hi, everyone.
And I just want to take a moment. Thank you for joining us today, Joe. I appreciate you taking some time out of your day to hang out and answer some
Yeah, of
questions.
course.
So.
Anytime between working on Necro.
Yep. Yeah, there's tons of stuff to be doing there, so.
First of all, oh, that teaser. What's he doing? We want to know. Will it be answered? Stay tuned. Find out more. Necro.
All right. Without further ado, we've gone ahead and gathered a whole bunch of questions from our community and from a variety of different places. We took some straight off of Facebook. We took some from our forums, from Twitter. So we've kind of gathered a bunch, and we've also took some international questions. So you'll see a whole bunch of stuff from all over the place, and we tried to get a little bit of everything. So hopefully we'll hit on most of the points that you guys were looking to hear from us today. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get to our first question. This one comes from Ghost Poss. Can you explain more in depth how the move to 64-bit will enhance our experience?
Yeah, so this is going to be great for players. We're going to see shorter load times, and we're moving to DirectX 11.
Awesome.
So you'll see some few graphical improvements, things like normal maps on some ground textures, things like that.
Awesome. And this is coming in 243, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So if you haven't tried out the 64-bit client, it is on the PTR right now. So go ahead and give that a try. It's a really nice, smooth experience. So.
All right, so first thing up, 64-bit client. I'm glad that this one got some spotlight. It's actually really good that it was the first question because this is by far, for all of us who are ensconced in the Diablo community deeply, this is like the one thing people have been categorically positive on. So, and it wasn't mentioned at BlizzCon, so it was one of those things where like everyone got the PTR, they noticed the new client, and they were just like, "What? Like, this is so good. Why is this?" Is Joe out of high school? I know he's got that forever young face. They're like, "What? This wasn't talked about." And my thought, my process, my like thinking about how that came to be in terms of it not being mentioned at BlizzCon is that it's not a like sexy change, right? It's not something that you can throw up on a slide and really showcase and say, "Hey, look, it's prettier than normal," right? Like most of us who are at the convention or at home, like we're not going to be like checking pixel to pixel. It's probably one of those things that you actually do jump into the PTR and you notice it because you're experiencing it. Especially the load times, like you can't show a load time, right? I mean, I guess you could do like a video or whatever, but they'd be like, okay. So it'd be one of those things I think just wouldn't hit like as hard. So it kind of makes sense that it's not, it wasn't present at BlizzCon, but I'm glad again here that it got some airtime. And I feel like even still, like hopefully, I mean, I guess I don't know how much more you could expound on it, but it feels like even like a blog post just to be like, hey, this update to the client is coming. Here are all the different features and things you can check to make your game look prettier and it'll run faster and blah, blah, blah. I don't know. Just feels like it's, if it's just the one thing that everyone wants to be super positive about across the board, I would play it up a bit more. But yeah, so new client, looks good, plays good, thumbs up.
Let's see. Our next question comes from Supreme. Are you happy with the current Paragon system, or do you think it needs to be reworked?
Whoa, big question, right? This is like one of the big topics that everyone has kind of had either a complaint about or actually not even or I guess a solution on how to fix or something in between because everyone experiences Paragon, right? And I think, well, let's hear the answer.
Yeah, so the Paragon system is an alternate progression track, right? Like you can get items to get increase your character power in Diablo. You can upgrade legendary gems. You can do cul-de-sacs. There are a bunch of different different tracks. Of course, you can level up from 1 to 70 at the very start of the game. The Paragon system allows a very broad portion of our audience to continue to get character power and always feel like when they log in and play for a while and log out, they've made some progress. And that's something that's really important to us. Now, for your ultra competitive players who want to, see like an even playing field and want to really push the limits there, we're really excited about the addition of challenge rifts in a future patch. They're going to have their own leaderboards, and you're going to be able to compete against your friends and compete against other people in the region. With everyone starts with the same character and same powers, and just straight up who can get the lowest time.
Yeah, and this is a feature we talked about briefly at BlizzCon. So.
We did, yeah. We announced it at BlizzCon. We're pretty excited about it. It's really coming along nicely.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to diving in there. I know the chicken playtest was like crazy awesome on the team. So.
Yeah, we had we've had a series of playtests where we test with different builds, and of course the builds for challenge rifts are going to come from the players themselves. Right. So actual players who have actually done a rift, you're going to be challenged to beat their time, and you'll be rewarded with some bounty materials, crafting materials, those kinds of things. We're going to get a big pile of those just for beating the player's time, and then beyond that, you can compete to see with your friends on the leaderboards and in your region, like I was saying. Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. So this question kind of was answered, but kind of was not answered, right? I think that there was two parts to it. One was the first part where Joe basically told us what the Paragon system is, and I guess in a way kind of explained how the developers view it in particular, kind of some of their jargon behind it and its importance to the team. So we understand that it is seen as an alternate progression track. It's something else that you can do to power up your character. It's something that you can continually do to power up your character. I think we all get that. And I think that potentially that is one of the main issues, right? Is that you can just keep leveling up your characters to the point where the people who have A, the efficient parties, or B, the most time on their hands are the ones who get the furthest. And again, it's going to you'll have to figure out what side of the coin you fall in there, because I feel like on the one hand, players should be rewarded for time spent in the game. If you're one of those people who are going to grind super hard, you should get a reward out of that, which should kind of translate to more power. And as a result, you should be one of the ones who are at the top of the leaderboards because you put in the most time, you put in the most effort. But does that reward go too far is kind of the big, and maybe the question wasn't specific enough, maybe, I'm not sure. But even the mention of just like the rework, it wasn't mentioned, but then it was a pivot, right? Joe didn't talk about a rework per se, but he talked about challenge rifts. So it kind of seems like maybe challenge rifts are being stuck in there as sort of the answer to the Paragon question. It doesn't solve the issue, but it kind of gives you something else to do if you want to escape the Paragon issue. But at the same time, it is different from challenge rifts. I'm saying it is different from seasons. So even if you want to participate in seasons, or if you don't see yourself as a challenge rifts player, then you're still going to have the issue of Paragon and how it should or shouldn't be solved. I'm not sure if they're tackling it or if challenge rifts is just going to be a thing that they have. And for those of you who are really fed up with Paragon, just do challenge rifts. But I guess I'll be curious to see if it's still a major complaint when CRs are out, just because maybe CRs end up being so addictive and so fun that no one cares anymore. And maybe that's what they're hoping. I'm not sure. But this one, I think will still continue to be a hotbed topic. I'm not sure we've heard the end of the whole Paragon thing and players wanting more from the system.
I can't wait for that. That'll be great. So our next question comes from Spawn. Do we have plans to rework Barbarian's Wrath of the Waste set? So we do have some changes already on PTR for this, right?
Yeah, so we've done a couple of passes on this set. The intention, just to be clear from the start, is to increase the power of the Wrath of the Waste set.
Right.
And we've we've made some additional changes that are going to be going out on PTR soon, I believe, that will help us get to that goal.
Right.
In 2.4.3, we've actually taken a look at some of the sets that weren't performing as well, where we felt like we could make strategic changes to bring them up and get a little bit more play diversity
Right.
across all the classes. You've got Rolands, Marauders,
Yep.
Innas, Aircures, Adelsirs, and of course Wrath of the Waste.
Right.
So with Wrath of the Waste specifically, a big part of the gameplay is this concept of throwing tornadoes at the monsters, and we think that there's some interesting gameplay there. We don't want the tornadoes to be completely meaningless, and we've actually done some gameplay optimizations to Whirlwind and to the tornadoes to make sure that they can perform, perform well
Right.
performance-wise, so that there's no concerns there. But we think that the balance prior to 2.4.3 too heavily favored the tornadoes. So we're shooting for more of like a 60% of your damage comes from Whirlwind, and maybe about 40% comes from your actual tornadoes. So that's what you'll see in 2.4.3 as we sort of hone in on that balance.
Very cool.
All right. So this is a good question, obviously, and a good answer here. Wrath of the Waste seems to be one of those sets that the Barbs just will not let go of. We had the developer, we had the developer blog on it. The one where they would talk about how they wanted to change it and some of the issues. And it actually sounds like they were able to address some of those issues. One of the big things was they didn't necessarily want everyone playing Whirlwind because all the optimizations that weren't yet in the game made it so that it was like a heavy strain on system resources and the server and things like that. So it sounds like they were able to optimize enough to allow for a ton of people who might want to play Wrath of the Waste to be able to do so. And of course, as we see it right now in PTR, it is buffed. And they did make it so that it's more Whirlwind that's putting out your damage than the tornadoes. So that's good. And then he also just mentioned sort of like at a glance as well too, that they decided to then take a look at all the other kind of underperforming sets too, one across all the different classes. And that's reflected in the PTR right now as well too. So, I mean, it's a step in the right direction, right? I don't think, and we'll get into more of this in another question too, but I don't think that these sets will necessarily become like the top tier or game changers or anything like that. Although with Eric here, you can argue it already is. So, it's still not going to like drastically change the meta, I don't think. But at the same time, one of the things that they keyed on, and one of the things I agree with is it should allow for players that, want to play something that's not meta to do so and not feel severely lacking, right? Not feel like their build is just so trash that they'd be better off doing something that they hate. So I guess we'll see if there's more with that in the coming PTR patches, because it doesn't sound like that they're done tinkering with things. And let's see some questions or comments in chat. Grumplekin says, I think they should nerf EXP so that getting the 800 would take at least a month of grinding. That is something that they could do. I mean, that was, if you think about season 1 and 2, right? That was kind of how things were. You didn't really go into Greater Rifts unless you were trying to increase your best Greater Rift time on the leaderboard. Otherwise, you were just farming T6. Like, remember, there was no T10, there was no T13. It was just T6, and you were farming that to, like, hopefully potentially increase your gear. Once you had everything you needed for your build, you were aiming for those 1% upgrades, and they would hopefully help you nudge like one more Greater Rift ahead of the other guy or girl. So, I mean, I don't know. We ended up pivoting away from that because at the time, people were also crying out that they wanted Greater Rifts to be more rewarding. And then did they go too far, right? I guess is the other side of that coin, because then all these multipliers came in. EXP just kept getting ramped up and ramped up and ramped up, to the point where, like, now you see you can get Paragon 800 in like the first weekend if you're super coordinated and gung-ho about it. So I think that would be an interesting reversion to go back to like less EXP just being handed out as a total, as a sum. But will they? I don't know. I feel like one of the things you have to think about too though is that might potentially screw with the quote unquote balance of non-seasonal, because there will always be people who benefited under the previous system when EXP was just outright, bananas. And then someone might come along and say, oh, I don't want to do seasons, but I'm tied to my characters. I had like Paragon 500 last I played. Let me just get back in here. And now they're never really going to be able to catch up to those other people. Maybe that's just something that should be accepted. Like you weren't here during the time that people were gaining those Paragon levels, so you can't really complain about not getting the benefit because you should have been playing if you wanted it. There's kind of that you can throw out there, but I don't know how well that would fly. And Demon Monger says, I want to add really quickly that the 400% on PTR is a 25% nerf to its overall throughput. Curious to see what they have intended in the next PTR patch. I've been hearing some people saying that it's actually a nerf instead of a buff. So we'll get to another point in this Q&A session, but they did talk about wanting to make further changes to Wrath of the Waste. So maybe that's going to address that. And then, yes, Dredd did do an article on the whole Paragon system where he tried to tackle, quote unquote, getting rid of it or just like moving things back around and stuff. So that's an interesting read if you're looking for one of the, like I mentioned, like billions of solutions that people have thrown out there. It's a pretty good read.
So, let's move to our next question. This one is about the Necromancer. At BlizzCon, we mentioned that the Necromancer themes are about reanimation, blood, and bone, but what about poison? I was in love with my Poison Novas and Poison Dagger back in the D2 days. Thanks for the question, Gensaru.
Yeah, so the Necromancer, we're very much in the middle of developing all of his skills and sort of exploring out these themes that we talked about at BlizzCon, and we found that the blood theme and the sort of theme of decay is really strong. We're able to really build a lot of really interesting gameplay around these themes. So poison hasn't come into it as much. You may see a rune here that potentially there, but the Witch Doctor is also a heavily poison themed class,
right.
And we do want to we want to push those two classes
a little further apart, right?
Exactly.
Make sure that they stand on their own. They have their own themes and.
Yeah, the necro. The necro is totally different from the Witch Doctor.
Right.
He has his mechanics are very different, but even that said, we want to make sure that we're really playing up the strongest themes with him, which are those
blood,
four.
Bone, yeah. Excellent.
All right, so this one's pretty cut and dry. Want to make sure there's separation between Witch Doctor and Necromancer, even though the Necro is apparently playing very differently from the Witch Doctor. Don't want to tread on the toes of the Witch Doctor. Witch Doctor obviously came in, tons of poison. Just think of Acid Cloud, think of Poison Dart, like literally skills with poison in the name. Rabid dogs, etc. So they're pretty ensconced in poison. I don't think we'll see Necromancer dip into that pool, although I actually want to go back real quick because there is a reaction that Brandy had that almost sounded like she was going to remind Joe about like some specific runes, which makes it sound like there's actually a lot that has happened with the Necromancer. I'm so sad that we didn't get more info on it, but I'm sure like they're either saving a lot of that stuff up to like put out on a juicy blog or something, or maybe we'll have like another one of these specifically on the Necromancer or something. But
the Witch Doctor is also a heavily poison themed class,
right.
And we do want to we want to push those two classes
a little further apart, right?
Exactly. There into it as much. You may see a rune here that potentially.
Maybe I was hearing things. I don't know. I thought she preempted him on it.
Apart, right.
I was like, oh, they must be playing a version of it. I was doing my own like
the necro
tinfoil hat.
Totally different from the Witch Doctor.
Right.
He, you know.
I also think it's
he
interesting,
has-
like some of the classes have
mechanics are very
strong
different, but
identities with genders.
even-
Like you
even
hear
that said,
and see a
we
lot of
wanna make
people
sure
refer to
that
Necromancer as
we're
he.
really playing up.
But words, I know, I know. Oh, like reading into everything. Like her hair's down. What does that mean?
So our next one is
I was just gonna say though, I think it's kind of funny that certain classes have like certain gender, almost designations. It seems. I mean, I guess probably because for the Necro, the male model was the first one to go out the door. We haven't really touched on the female yet. We've only seen her in a few like art pieces. But it's just kind of funny because I know a lot of people are very strict about like, oh, the demon hunter, like there is no male demon hunter. It's a him or it's a her. The barbarian is like, you know, masculine. It's like, how do you imagine this class and what is the pronoun that you use? Not that, you know, in these day and ages though, you have to like be careful on how much you do with any of that. But I just find it kind of interesting. You need big hair. Ah, I get it. I get it. Yeah, yeah. Like our good buddy Lore. The big hair club. That dude's got a fierce mane. You definitely had some volume today though.
an anonymously submitted question, and this one is: will the PS4 and Xbox One players be getting the anniversary patch and event at the same time as PC and Mac players?
Yes, they will.
Yeah.
Our console players are first-class citizens. And,
I like this answer.
remember, of course, that we're also bringing seasons to
Consoles, yeah.
in a future patch this year. So we're really excited about that. We're building it for console so that the console experience is organic and feels like it was developed for console from the ground up, just like we did with the game itself.
Awesome. So that'll be coming very shortly.
That was kind of an interesting answer just because he could have easily said yes. You know, for those of us who pay very close attention, we know that the patches are simultaneous for Xbox One and PS4. But I also like that I like that he touched on the fact that seasons are being kind of rebuilt, it sounds like, for the console experience specifically. I wonder what that means or what that entails. I wonder if that has anything to do with some people's concerns about, you know, the crappy things that people can do to basically make seasons illegitimate, right? Like people can mod items and hack things in on the consoles. So I wonder if that is going to play into any of this whole like restructuring and how they're going to try and capture some of that, or if it's really just like we want the menus, we want like the seasonal journey to be navigated easier than you might think it would be for console players and things like that. It's kind of curious. But that was cool that he just threw that in there. But yeah, pretty simple one there. More than 5 minutes on the hair. Hey, if you're gonna be on screen, right? Like you gotta nail it. You gotta put in like the effort, but then make it look effortless, right? It's like, oh, she just woke up. I woke up like this. Hashtag. Definitely
Our
did look
next
good
question
though. Good job.
Comes from Edu, and he asks: Saffron Wrap. Most legendaries need synergies with sets to be worth using. Are there any plans on incorporating Overpower to a set?
Yeah, so we've talked about this. We even talked about adding it to Wrath of the Wastes. Where we ended up with Wrath of the Wastes, we wanted to focus on the werewolf.
What does that mean?
Right, werewolves in the rend.
Is there a werewolf skill for
Apparently
Necro?
there are werewolves. No, we wanted to focus on the whirlwind.
I would not be surprised if
element
Reddit runs
and,
with that.
Really address the tornado issue there, like I alluded to earlier. Saffron Wrap we think is very cool. We think it's very interesting. So we're going to see how it plays out and what kinds of uses it gets put to once it goes live, and then we'll reevaluate it from there.
Awesome.
Okay, so this is one that I think a lot of people were probably wondering as well too, because it seems like the Saffron Wrap is slated to work with the Wrath of the Waste set, right? Like that would be, of the builds that they currently possess, the Barbarians that is, it would make the most sense to slot Overpower in. Excuse me. To slot Overpower in, just because that was actually what we did back in the day, right? Like when you had those run like the wind, whirlwind barbs that were like super cheap to make in the AH. One of the things that you ran in there was some overpower to get more crits, since your crits mattered for the tornadoes to generate fury, so on and so forth. Um, I guess it makes sense. It seems like this is a reiterated point throughout this Q&A, is that a lot of the things they're kind of tossing out there to see first how they just kind of work into the miasma of what's going on with Diablo players and what's available to try it with, and then potentially based on that data and what people do with that stuff, then they might circle back once again. Um, I mean, to me, it makes sense. I see Demon Monger in chat um, kind of refuting this. Is there a focus when they're creating items? I mean, that's something to like figure out, right? Like you have to, and Dainty's kind of countering too, to say like it's better to be conservative just because of the potential for there to be all these interactions that can't even be thought of when someone's developing an item. And if you think about it, like Diablo 3 is a massive game when it comes to like items are what we're after, right? So there are a lot of powers, there are a lot of sets, there are a lot of synergies, and that's at the heart of the question: is what is the use of Saffron Wrap and Overpower in particular if it's not worked into particularly any set. And I guess it's interesting because Wrath of the Waste is one of those sets that doesn't have like that multiplier. It's not an IK set, right? Where like anything you do is just multiplied by that 6-piece bonus. So I can see concerns for Overpower not feeling overpowered, I guess, once it hits, because it's not gonna like get a bonus from any of the things that are actually written on the Wrath of the Waste set. But I guess we'll see, A, if the belt is just strong enough on its own, and if not, there would be like the two ways to address it, right? Either you increase the belt and its actual power, and then you have to be careful there because it could get slotted into another build that, they're intending this to, hey, we want this to work with Wrath of the Waste. It's almost the Ring of Emptiness again, if you think about it. Like Ring of Emptiness was clearly a Jade item, but then people were going to use it with Helltooth, and it's like, wait, but that's not what this is for. We want it for Jade. And so like there's just always these instances where if you make an item too good, people might just try and force it into a slot where something is already really good and try and make that better. So you have to keep some of that individuality, I guess, between here's the item, we want it to work in this particular way with this particular set. We're coming at it like from the low end because hopefully, people just don't try to force it in everywhere. Also see Hexing Pants with Seeker of the Light, for instance, which is why the Hammer Jammers had to become a thing. But we've seen it time and again. So I can imagine that, conservative first, then figure out, can we make this better? Can we tie in the synergy better? So yeah, good answer.
So go ahead and equip those saffron wraps and start experimenting. And let us know how it feels and what you like about it. All right, our next question.
That's right, test, feedback.
Group play is more rewarding than solo play. Could something be done to reduce the disparity between the two?
Oh, this is my question.
Yeah.
I mean, not literally my question. Like, I did not create a second account to get more questions in. Although none of my questions got picked, by the way, but they were kind of sort of picked in a way because some of my questions were other people's questions. But this is like, I say this is my question because, I came from the solo school. Like, that is my jam. I love solo play. I love my people. I love group play too now more than I used to. But just that feel from that competitive standpoint where it feels so mandatory. There are some days you just want to kind of like kick back and do solo, and to some degree it's allowed for in a season. But again, Paragon, right? Most things come back to Paragon. Unless you're like aiming to be the best of the best of the best, then you can't really ever go solo because groups are so important. But anyways, question, here's the answer.
So this is something that we are looking at very carefully. We would like to make some changes here to make the solo play experience more fun when you're doing bounties. And we're working right now on exactly what the changes what changes we can make to accomplish that are.
We always kind of go through different like iterations and experiments and figure out what works, what doesn't work.
Yeah, but it's absolutely something that's on our radar.
For sure.
Okay, kind of spaced out because I was typing in chat. But I remember the answer to this question, and the one thing that intrigued me was just it's something. I think it's to be honest, I think it's always something that they're thinking about and looking at because even if you remember back to BlizzCon 2015, one of the big things and takeaways from that was some of the nerfing of or sure, call it nerfing, like bringing closer the gap between group and solo. Like they had openly admitted that groups are way better than playing solo. You get all this experience and stuff. So then they made that change to like rubies and the helm. Where at level 70 you're getting like nothing from it anymore. So it's kind of supposed to close the gap. And also that was when the change to adventure mode came in, where your kill streaks, massacre bonuses, there you go, began being really lucrative. So that was something that potentially was supposed to help. But I think it closed things a little bit, but obviously not enough to make a huge difference because groups are still by far better. And I think they always will be, but it's always just that like gap of disparity that people would like to see closed further. But at least the answer here with stuff about bounties, like even that would be a huge help because bounties are so much more efficient in groups. As someone who has literally been playing Season 8 solo the entire time, bounties have been one of the more time-consuming things, and especially because I'm running a Legacy of Nightmares set where bounties is so important because re-rolling pieces in the cube or reforging is one of the easiest ways to prop up and improve your Legacy of Nightmares set. So bounties are like heavily integral to playing as a lone Crusader, but at the same time doing it solo, it just takes forever. And one of the things I kind of wish this was like I wish we could have like had follow-ups or whatever, but one of the biggest pain points is the disconnect as a solo player. So like literal disconnect, like if you're playing and the client crashes on you or like your internet craps out or whatever, it could happen on their end, could happen on your end, but you lose your game. Hopefully you don't die as a hardcore character, but you log back in and it's like, well, crap, I was doing, a bunch of acts and I didn't pick up my bonuses yet or whatever. Even if you do pick up the bonuses, because I know some of the answers that people give are, oh, just collect your caches as you go. But even if you did that, you would still have this disjointed amount, this in proportionate number of like, now I have a bunch of Act 4 and Act 5, and you have to make all these like changes to your gameplay basically to correct it if you become super OCD about having 4 more Act 1 materials than every other material that you have or whatever, because you got that disconnected play. So I hope that part of the change or messing around with this single player bounty stuff might potentially address that, because that would be a huge boon, a huge help. But we'll see.
Let's see. Our next question comes from Horax, and he asks, do we have plans to rework the Akans?
Yes, fellow Crusader.
Yeah, so we added a 7th piece to Akans in 243 to the next slot, the amulet slot. And that's a contested slot. There are other things that you might want to put there. But we're really interested to see what kinds of new builds players can make with this extra flexibility that's added there, and we're gonna, see where it goes from there.
Very cool.
Mugs, I just saw your comment. I do agree, because there are also, I personally don't craft many things from Hadrig, but I have noticed that certain crafting recipes only take like 2 of like one act and 2 of another, and then when you do that, now you have 2 less, of your totals, where you had 5 of each act previously. Now you have like 5, 5, 3, 3, 5 or something. So doing something to address that would definitely be nice too. Can you ask a noob hardcore disconnect question? Yes, of course, please. But just to touch on this question basically got the saffron wrap answer, which is, they're throwing that amulet in there just to provide for some variety, see what builds come from kind of having the Akan 7th piece, because the Akan is the general Crusader set. And again, that's going to be one where if you throw in another piece, could be tons of synergy. Like even right now, people use Akan 6 and Invoker 2. So adding an amulet could now make it, you can do a Con 6 Invoker 4 or something like that. But actually, because it's an amulet, it is a highly contested slot, like Joe said. So you almost likely won't see many concerns about it being too mixed up, because a lot of people still need that Hellfire, or even more importantly, that Traveler's Pledge to complete the Endless Walk set. So I think we'll see probably not too much change on the icons in terms of what players do, just by adding the amulet. But I think it's going to take a rework of the powers on the actual set itself before people do anything crazy with it, or like make anything like super out of this world. I think the biggest shift you might see is just that like they had mentioned in the blog post on this one as well. You might see a sage mix. You know, if people really want to focus on death's breaths, you might see people do low level, quote unquote low level, like, you know, a T8, T9 speed setup or something, and mix that in as well too. You play hardcore WD because of the pets. If your internet goes out, your pets keep attacking. Yes, they do. That's why initially, for two reasons, witch doctors were one of the best hardcore characters to roll, because they were one of two, if I recall correctly. Monks and witch doctors were the only classes that had cheat deaths. And then, of course, witch doctors in particular were going to be exceptionally hardier during disconnects, because their pets were meat shields that had to, you know, the monsters had to get through before they got to you. But also there was the potential that the monsters could kill the threat, or the pets could kill the threat before they killed you. So it was always a nice reason to roll a witch doctor in hardcore. And that's kind of why Thorns is so nice for Crusaders as well too, because sometimes the monsters might be attacking you, but they'll kill themselves before they kill you. Next question.
So another anonymous question was submitted. This one is, are there any plans to add more achievements?
Achievement hunters.
Yeah, you're going to see a whole new batch of achievements as part of the Necromancer pack. He'll have a full set of achievements, just like you'd expect for any other class.
Right. So those achievement hunters need to go and roll up a necro.
You got it.
Gotta do it.
There's so many good reasons to roll a necro.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes sense. Of course, I guess that actually answers something that hadn't been previously noted before. It's so repetitive. We didn't know if there were going to be achievements tied specifically to the Necromancer. I mean, we kind of assumed it makes sense for them to do so, right? But we didn't know for certain. So now we know, which is cool. Everyone who loves achievements. Actually, I know a lot of people who like maxed out their achievements to 100% previous to ROS. Then ROS came out, and they acted like they were unhappy. They're like, oh man, now I have like 88%. I have so much work to do. Or not even, it was like a huge amount actually. It's probably like, no, I have like 55%. But obviously they were super stoked because now they have more achievements to hunt. So pretty simple question, pretty simple answer. More achievements coming with Necro. Wizards had oh yeah, that's right. Wizards had the something anomaly. Unstable
and
anomaly.
That's totally the same question. I did not rotate to the next one. So.
Achievements in new set dungeons. Yeah, we knew set dungeons. And that makes sense too. If there's going to be set dungeons, then of course achievements are tied with set dungeons, so there would be more achievements as well too. Next question.
You know it's live because I'm messing up. So, how do the devs feel about the sets that vastly outperform others, such as Firebirds? What kind of changes can we look forward to regarding set balance, if any? So this one comes from Brogoth. I believe this one was on our forums.
So we, our philosophy in general for situations where maybe something is perceived as being too strong is that we don't want you to do something Thursday night and then log in Friday morning and be unable to do that same thing, like unable to clear the same Greater Rift level or something.
You never want to log in weaker.
Exactly. So we're very, very careful about making those kinds of changes to things that are perceived as too strong. Mm-hmm. So in this situation for 243, we've buffed some of the other sets for the classes, and the goal there is to sort of get play styles, get people able to sort of check out some of the play styles that they enjoy without feeling like it's completely
like that they're being way left behind. Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
So providing some more variety in gameplay.
Yeah, and that's something that we plan to continue monitoring, and these kinds of strategic changes are something that you could see more of in the future, potentially.
Very cool.
Yes. To Muggs, yes, to your credit, this is a common answer that we hear. I almost feel like it's part of the media training. You know, it's a phrase that they probably get, like, hey, throw this out there. Don't want people to log on and feel weak. So it's, you know what it is? It's their way of saying that they don't want to nerf anything. I don't think they like to use the word nerf. They do like to use the word buff, but I don't think you ever really hear them say nerf. And I think this is that answer when they want to say nerf, but they don't say nerf. I think there's a lot to, like, if you are really interested in communication and like creating player psychology and reputation between two parties and things like that, I think a lot of that has to do with the way that questions get answered, because they're trying to like they're trying to tell you no without telling you no, basically, in a way, but also just like avoid negatives and stuff too. So like they're not going to say nerf, but they'll tell you that we're actually doing this as a positive thing for you. We don't want you to feel weak, so there will be no like adjustments to stuff that seems really OP. In any case, though, the thing I'm more interested in this answer is that the question is particularly about set balancing when something is OP, and the answer was more towards play styles. And so I think the balance in that case is more in options and not necessarily in best options. It seems like right now the focus is to just get playstyles that have fallen behind, falling off the wagon, or whatever the phrasing you want to use. Things that used to be in fashion are now like not hot anymore. They're trying to get them back up to snuff a little bit, but not brought up to the level of what's OP, it sounds like. And I think that's probably part of that whole like conservative approach of, we want this to be better, but if we push the numbers too far, will it just take over and be the next best thing? Because then you just fix one problem by creating another problem. If I'm getting into the head of what is going on back at Blizzard. So I think this is okay to start, but I think like Joe was talking about at the end, like they will do more of these strategic uppings of these lower class sets, I guess. That's good. I hope that does happen, because I think it'll be good initially to get just some of that, like people who want to play Nats again can play, or I guess Nats, sorry, bad example. People who want to play Marauders again might be able to do so and feel good about it, feel that they're not just like, wasting their time because UE is just leagues better. Maybe it's like a bit better, but not leagues better, so that they just are like, I should just trash this set to begin with. But I think when you look at, and I guess it's like a vocal minority too, because the people who are going to be the most concerned about this are the most competitive players, because they want that diversity at the top. They don't want to just be penned into one set. But if the ultra competitive players are honest with themselves, there probably always will be that one thing, and they will do it because it's the best way to get to the top. So even then, it's going to be really tough to get true balance where, like, unless every set looked exactly the same and all the skills operated exactly the same, like multi-shot fired at the exact same rate and the exact same spread as a rapid fire did, as cluster arrow did, it's going to be really tough when the sets are based around skills to get pure balance, because some skills just operate better than others. Some skills have a better way to be buffed up than others. And the way that they go about buffing up those skills through the sets and through the various items and powers is different from class to class, from set to set, etc., etc. So I think just by having flavor, that also messes with potential power balance. But I think you would rather have the game not feel completely vanilla than have every set feel like you can just use that set. Because at the same, when you actually boil it down, then you're just using the same set. It's just called a different name, and it potentially uses a different skill, but that skill operates exactly the same as another skill you could use in another set. So it's always a tough issue here. I personally would like to be able to play more things like, come on, Condemn, right? But I guess I get it that it's tough. Personally, I would just like to see something new come to the top all the time, like kind of the way that League of Legends handles their buffs. Like sometimes there's just this champion that has not seen pro play in a long time, and just give it like a ton of buffs until like people are forced to use it because it's just that broken, and then they like bring it back into the realm of reality, and then eventually they give someone else that same treatment. It would almost be nice to see like, Cons is really sucking, and it's been that way for the past 3 seasons. Just give it a crazy bonus, and now it's the top, and then eventually like bring it down, and then Rollins, you get that next boost up. they have said that they don't want to do that, so they probably won't. But I don't know. I would personally like that just because it would provide for more variety, but it's tinkering for the sake of tinkering as well too.
Let's see. Let's make sure. Oh, I
Anyways,
left
next
that
question.
up the entire time. We were talking about that one.
It's
Sorry, you didn't get to
live.
see us wildly gesturing
Still
about
live.
class sets. Still live. We're still live. So our next one comes from Demian. And he asks, are there any plans to overhaul and improve the character skill system?
Yeah, so as a live game, the skill system is a sort of a foundational element of Diablo 3. And as a live game, we wouldn't make a change that affected such a fundamental element of the game. We wouldn't rebuild the skill system.
Right.
Beyond that, the way that the flexibility that the skill system affords in Diablo 3 allows us to make legendary items that have the wildly different and crazy powers that you see, and then when you see one of these legendaries, you can pick it up and try to make a build with it without being hamstrung by what the sorts of things that a more restrictive skill system might limit you to. So you can immediately try that out. You can come up with new builds. And that's part of why we were able to make things like Lawn.
Awesome.
So message from Longshot, can barely hear him. The audio was a little quiet, but I think I also have my web browser turned down a little bit. So let me turn it up a little bit more. Shoot, I need to get to... All right, hold on one sec. I need to get to a certain screen.
Let's see.
Whoops.
Here's your...
Pause. All right, let me get here real quick. Pump that gem a little bit. This might come in a little hotter now, so I'll adjust the volume as we go. And we're back. All right. This one area feels in a really good position. Skills are fine, in my opinion, unless he means the legs that support them. Yeah, so this question, this answer, it seemed like it's kind of one of the things where people talk about, like, we're just limited to 6 skills, maybe. That's what I was getting. At least it seemed that was the interpretation for the answer that we got. And it seems like that's locked in, right? Like, that is the reason, that is just the way it is. Like, it's a foundational part of the way that the game is built. And to mess with that would probably have, like, huge ramifications, not just, like, in the actual client itself, but also based on all the way that the game has been being built, right? Like the sets, the items, the powers, etc. I guess the spin that he put on it was that it kind of is the thing that provides them with the ability to make crazy powers, to do a lot more with the buffing of skills and things like that, or like to unlock multiple runes, have some skills trigger other skills and things like that, because they know that there's a 6 skill limitation, I guess. Which I guess makes sense if that is the design philosophy, if that is true, and we take him at his word, then I think that seems fine. Joe's a quiet dude. You had him cranked up higher, but didn't want to risk it being maxed out. Yeah. Yeah, this is true. All right, let's see. Actually, let me turn this down a little bit because I don't want it to come in too loud.
Next one. Can we get a new transmog set for seasonal rewards? Asks Quaker Ninja.
All right, hopefully that's louder.
Transmog sets are very cool. We are going to do new cosmetics for Season 9, so you can expect to see things much along the lines of what you saw in Season 8.
Right, so new portrait frames and a new cosmetic. And
yep, brand new cosmetic.
very cool.
This is how you say no without saying no. This is what I was kind of talking about before. So acknowledge that the thing that they were asking for is cool, and then pivoted to talking about something else that's coming that's similarly related, right? So basically, no, there will not be another transmog set that is unlocked through the seasonal progression. Like, I think it's called the Conqueror's set or something like that, the Conqueror's transmog set. Like, you know how we get like the head, the shoulders, the chest, the feet, the gloves, the pants. each season. I think that is going to stay the same. I'm not sure. Well, I was just going to say I'm not sure that it's a huge issue, but obviously this question was asked because someone out there is curious about it. So I guess it is an issue, at least to them. But I'm not sure it's something that anyone's keying in on. Or let me not say that because I'm taking away their agency. I guess it's just not a concern of mine. I can perfectly say that. It's not a huge concern of mine. Just because they've already added other transmog type things to throw on your character and stuff. And I can see if it's an important part of how you play the game, on how you like envision having fun with Diablo 3. But I guess, oh, here's a good answer, right? The Necromancer is going to bring with it some new sets and legendary items, which you could potentially transmog on your character. No? There you go. The Seinfeld close talker. I love it. Oh, see, and Demon Monger, I didn't even read chat, but Demon Monger is one of those cosmetic people right there. He likes the cosmetic hunt. So there you go. There are people who this is a concern for. So, you know, it's a thing. Hopefully there are more things. But no new things coming in Season 9. That you can transmog into directly via the unlocking system that we know and love. But there will be new portraits and some other things. Like that Colossus turtle thing, which is freaking sweet, man.
Let's see, our next one comes from, I believe this geeky Texas chick. Asks, can we get info as to the timeline for Season 8 ending and Season 9 starting? I know a lot of you guys want the answer to this question.
Of course this one was going to pop up, right? I'm surprised. Well, I was almost about to spoil the answer, but of course this question was going to pop up. And just to finish on transmogs, Muggs says, I want to see the ability to transmog all one-handers as the same so that fists can do swords, etc. I prefer wings and pets. I wasn't aware that that still wasn't a thing. For Crusaders, you can actually transmog like flails and things into, or maybe it's the other way around. I think you can transmog swords into flails, which seems like it would be unique because they're so different. But you might also be able to actually, I know that you can transmog swords or flails into swords because I have my Swift mount transmogged into the Spectrum, the Rainbow Sword. So I'm surprised that you don't have that for the fist weapons and things. But I know that there was something about like it has to have the same animation, right? Like the slash might be different from a punch or something. I don't know.
Yes. So we are going to announce
season
more
dates.
Information about when Season 8 ends very soon.
Very soon.
We typically announce that in a blog post, so
Yes.
keep an eye out for that. And Season 9 is going to start shortly after Season 8 ends, and you can expect to see that somewhere around the release of Patch 2.3.
Yeah. All right.
Now, I may be reading into this one, but it sounds like I'm looking at my watch, guys, which I'm not wearing a watch. Today is the 15th of December, right? I would not be surprised to see this blog come down tomorrow. It sounded like it was very close. Like, I guess that's all I'm saying, is that it sounded like the blog post was like, it's in the bank. It's written. It's coming. It's done. But just in my imaginings with how this whole timeline works, tomorrow's the 16th. If we get our 2-week minimum warning, which is, you know, what we have been getting for the past few seasons, yes, that would end this season earlier than the normal 3 months that we've been aiming for and the team has been aiming for. But it would make sense with the line that season ends, end of December. You know, Blizzard peeps are off on their holiday break. They come back into the office like first week January. Then they get rolling, launch a new patch. Season launches after that. All hunky-dory. But then you also roll out the anniversary event like early in January, early enough so that enough people can experience it and play with it and stuff like that. So it would make sense just for that timing. But all guessing, all conjecture, I don't know. But I have a feeling this one's close. If it comes out tomorrow, we can celebrate 24 hours from now. We'll do this. Woo-hoo. That'll be our celebration. All right.
Let's scroll down here a bit. We've got a bunch of questions. So our next one comes from Muzz, and he asks, will there be an alternative true endgame that can compete with Greater Rifts?
Muggs, is this you?
So to kind of get into the philosophy, sort of the background for this question a little bit, we see seasons as a way to continue to engage with the game over a long period of time, and we think that seasons really helps keep the game fresh by allowing you to play all the different classes, and with season journeys, the season journey and the changes to the season journey, you know, with the new sets and everything each season. So that is an end game.
Right.
Now, to answer your literal question, like for people who want to take the same character and make sure that character is as strong as they can get and max out all their legendary gems and call the sans and get Paragon up and everything, Greater Rifts are the place to do that.
Right.
They're a great place to do that, and they're serving that purpose.
Okay. And then, I mean, as we mentioned before, like for the really truly competitive people who want that even playing ground, you know, that's sort of the focus of Challenge Rifts coming in the future. So
yeah, they should look forward to Challenge Rifts coming out and being able to check them out. I don't think we mentioned it here, but as part of our announcement for Challenge Rifts, we do plan to see new Challenge Rifts on a regular basis. So you're going to be getting a new build to check out from a new player
fairly frequently
on a very regular basis.
Yeah.
Okay. So this one was kind of just like status quo, right? Are Greater Rifts going to be the end all be all for Endgame? The answer is basically yes. It is the way that we will progress our characters once we're done with getting to level 70, getting geared up, etc. Like, you will just have that grind to continue. I mean, it's built, the way that it's built, there kind of can be, let me not say that, there could be different ways to throw in new like game features or game modes or whatever that might argue with Greater Rifts as an end game. But when you think about like Call to Sans Despair, gem leveling, Paragon, experience, Greater Rift leaderboards, etc., like it's all so neatly tied together that it kind of is what makes the season, right? And it's like the only facet for non-seasonal, right, is Greater Rift competition, Greater Rift grinding. So like it is so tightly balled into what is left for players to do when they run out of things to do, that like how do you undo that, right? Like how do you make other things that compete with that? I guess my point is that it will always be a thing you have to do. There might be other things, like Brandy mentions, the challenge rifts, that could like compete with your time for players who maybe don't want to do the Paragon grind again. Again, it all comes back to Paragon, right? For players that don't want to go through that and stay dedicated for an entire 3-month season, maybe you play seasons early on, you get your conquest done, you get your early like first week leaderboard positions or whatever, and then you just go to challenge rifts, and that's what you do until the next season rolls out. So that could be, if you look at it, kind of like multiple end games. But I guess, you know, with Joe's answer, as far as like seasons being like one of their ideas of endgame, it kind of makes sense. And then with Greater Rifts tied in the way that they are, it kind of makes sense that that is just like the thing, you know. It's going to be tough to unseat Greater Rifts as the end all, the end all be all, the end game all, be game all thing. So it's until like you would have to, I don't know what you would have to do, honestly, but I think we'll need to see what the impact of challenge rifts are before we can determine just how bad is it, right? Like just how unavoidable is it that Greater Rifts are that commanding? If challenge rifts don't come in and disrupt that whole flow of what we do, then I think we can reapproach this question and be like, there needs to be something else, or like, can we think of something else? But I think challenge rifts, like if they come out right, man, I think they really could be the thing that answers a lot of questions. It might not fix things that exist, but I think it can provide alternatives, and that might be good just for variety and other things to do. All right, next question.
Thanks for the question, Mud.
Also, hi Chronoside. What's up?
Let's see, our next one comes from GBrav13. Are there any plans to lessen the dominance of the Archon skill for wizards?
Yeah, so we do think that Archon is a little bit too dominant in terms of the wide variety of wizard builds that utilize Archon. Delseers doesn't use Archon in a lot of builds, and it recently got a buff in 2.4.3.
Yeah.
So check that out.
Mm-hmm. So sort of just increasing the variety of different things.
We're going to continue to look at this and ways that we can affect this.
Yeah, shake it up a bit.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
All right, quick question, quick answer, right? Archon, acknowledged as a skill that is dominating wizards. It is one of their it is their transformation skill, right? Like your Wrath of the Berserker, your Akrat's Champion, etc. Like Archon is their kind of thing, but it permeates so many of their builds. I can see why a question like this would arise in terms of, is there ever going to be anything that's not Archon centric? And so I guess the answer to that is, hey, Delseers got buffed. Maybe that could take over as a different playstyle that's strong, and you might not use Archon in it because, you know, it's not a thing that's directly buffed by Delseer's powers on the set pieces. So I guess we'll have to see if they continue to tinker with that one, if they push DMO even further. But at least this one was acknowledged as a thing that, you know, is pervasive. Archon is everywhere.
Wow, we were really blowing through these.
Ripping through the questions.
All right, our next one comes from Free. This one was from the forums. Why don't community managers and developers interact more with community members and posters? So I guess this is a question for both of us. But one of the things that we're doing right now, and I'm sure some of you have noticed, is that we're kind of experimenting with different ways of communicating with you. That's just beyond making a forum post.
Yeah.
When you go and you make a forum post, a very small audience tends to see it, and we have a really huge community, and not all of it gets a chance to interact with one another, or interact with our developers, or interact with us. So we're trying different options. This live stream is one of them, and so if you're enjoying this live stream, please hit that hit those love buttons. Show some love, and
that's how we'll decide whether to do.
That's
more.
That's totally how we'll decide whether we do more or not. But it does actually help us figure out whether or not that this platform is working for us.
Yeah.
We've used Twitch in the past, and we've seen some successes with that. We've used YouTube. So we're trying to see what really fits the community best, and what also reaches the most people. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to go and abandon one form of communication or another, but it does mean that sometimes we spread ourselves a little bit thin trying to do all these different things. So it might get a little bit slow here or there, but we are here, we are listening, and even if we can't necessarily say something, we're doing our best to try to open that communication more now.
Yeah. I just want to add that we do, the developers do read the forums. I was here last night reading PTR forums, and we're actually gonna we're gonna do a couple of changes to some of the Greater Rift.
The Greater Rift.
We don't have a question
changes.
about this, but this is a great opportunity
To talk about it, yeah.
And we've got some more. I've got some additional tweaks that will be coming up to PTR as a direct result of your guys' feedback. So thank you guys.
Those focused feedback threads too, those are super helpful for helping us concentrate on specific issues and really get your feedback directly on what we're looking for in that moment. So thank you for everything you've sent in, because it's been really helpful.
All right, so this one, this kind of gets at the heart of what we all do, actually, or at least something specific to what I like to do. Part of my quote unquote job as a community person / influencer and whatnot. How does information get disseminated, right? What are the different places? How can my voice? I am this is me as a player, right? How can my voice be heard best so that my ideas reach the right people? And the answer is simple yet not simple, right? Like it's everything. You can put it anywhere. And some avenues might be better than others. The way that I'm taking this is that like the team realizes that there are multiple means of communication with them, right? There's Twitter, there's Facebook now, there's Twitch, there's YouTube comments, there's Reddit posts, there's official forum posts. There are just these conversations, they're like these streams, right? Where people are talking about stuff and whatnot. So many places, and if you imagine, it's hard to read everything, right? But that does not mean I feel completely comfortable saying that does not mean that they don't want to read everything. I think if they could clone themselves, if they could dedicate 1 billion hours per week to it, probably would, because the passion for this stuff is super high. And I think along with that passion is just having that constant need for like, what else can we do? What else are people talking about? What else can we see? You know, what's the pulse on this change, that change, etc. And I think the reason it's kind of a work harder, or what is it? Work smarter, not harder, right? Like you could potentially try and gather like all the little fishes and pieces and detritus and stuff that's in the bottom of the ocean. But at the same time, if you have this like concentrated spot of where the fish are hopping, why not put your net right there and catch a shit ton of fish, right? So I think that's kind of what, like, there's so many metaphors and things, I don't know what's going on. But I think that is what the focused feedback stuff is, right? So that's why they make that call to arms to say, hey, we want you to post right here about this specific thing so that we can look at it and, you know, make responsive change to it. I like the fact that they're attempting to do different avenues of stuff. Like there are some people never go to Twitch, right? So they may have missed some of the live stream stuff that's been done in the past. We've seen Blizzard kind of partner up with Facebook for that integration of the Facebook streaming into the battle.net or whatever it's supposed to be named now, Blizzard desktop application. And so there's obviously this drive to like use that platform as well too. But we also see like Brandy will post things. Actually, the perfect example, Brandy will post stuff that happens on YouTube, right? Like they are uploading the lightning talks to YouTube. That doesn't get like a notification. There's no blog for that. There's no tweet for that, but she'll post it in Reddit saying like, hey, by the way, this YouTube video for this specific lightning talk just went up. And so that's another way of like using a different mode of communication to actually get you to look at another medium that they have as well too. So I think you have to kind of see the forest for the trees, realize that this thing is like multifaceted, because I know personally when I'm trying to do it to get like the news on the website or things like that, like I have to scrape so many different places. I would love it if there was just like an inbox I had and I was just like, you know, Wyatt or Joe or Brandy, whenever you're going to do anything important, send it to this inbox so I can know that I didn't miss it, right? It's really hard to catch everything, but that's why you have to be smart about where you look. You have to kind of figure out what is the best use of my time, knowing that my time is limited in order to do so. And I think that's something you all in the community should also be asking yourselves too. If I really have this idea that I'm passionate about, what am I going to do to make sure that people hear it or people have eyes on it? Whether that's like teaming up with a fan site and like sending in an article, like there's always this idea that like it's better to just do it than say it, right? You could be like, I have this great idea. Well, don't just have the idea, make the idea, like make it come to life, put it together. I don't know who would turn away a really good idea like for no reason, right? Like there would have to be compelling reasons not to like post something that looks really well thought out, well developed, etc. And you have your own avenues for it too, between the forums and things like that. So I just think if you want to be heard, go to the places where you can be heard. And let's see here. The question we have to ask from Dainty is, which voices are we missing? If we only listen to the forums, then who aren't we hearing? Exploring new platforms lets us hear as many people and talk to as many people as possible. And that is, you know, a good point. Like for me, this is like the first time I've logged into Facebook. Well, okay, a lie. I lurk on Facebook a lot, right? But I don't necessarily like live on Facebook. So I actually had to go and like figure out like how do people do live streams on this? Like where am I supposed to be looking for when this happens? So it was a new experience for me, but again, there could be some people who just live and die by that, right? They are on Facebook, but they are not a Twitter person, or they are on Twitter, but they are not a Reddit person. So there is that idea too that you could, by focusing on one specific avenue that seems like it's giving you really good info, and maybe it is, could still be neglecting an entire population or an entire, like the whole idea of like international, right? Like some countries may not even have access to certain sites or use certain sites or things like that. So it's not a job that I envy by any means, even though I have like a small window into it. But I think it was cool that this question was picked up as well too, because not only does it give you their side of things, but it also helps to inform your own choices too, in terms of how you can be an effective member of the community. And also, what's up, Holy Knight, and what's up, Bracket? What's going on? We're reviewing the Q&A. We're actually almost to the end here, so I think we have like one or two more questions.
I think we're actually down to the last one that we've gathered.
Ah, there we go.
Yeah.
Last question.
So we blew through this really quickly. I guess I know next time to gather, like...
Next time we can take more questions.
Yeah, next time we can definitely take more questions. So,
Joe min-max the
this
crap
will
of these
go on
questions.
A little bit more on the fun side. So, seeing as we work for Blizzard and work on the Diablo team, what kinds of things does a Diablo team want for Christmas?
Yeah, so I can't speak for the whole team, of course.
Right.
But I did, before I came over here, I did take a poll of a couple other people in the same, who share an office with me, and let's see, I think Wyatt wanted some snow for Christmas.
Some snow in Irvine.
Down here in Irvine. But someone else immediately commented that they did not want snow in Irvine. So I don't know which one is gonna win out. We'll see.
I like to think the odds are in my favor.
I think you might, yeah.
I might, just a little
you
bit.
might make it. One of the other people wanted to get butterfly wings.
Butterfly wings, right?
His galaxy wings.
The galaxy wings. Those are from Whimsydale, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for me, I would love to get an ancient witching hour. That would be great.
Yeah. What build are you using
like
that?
my last.
What build are you using that for?
Unhallowed Essence.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Man. Well, hopefully that'll be in your stocking stuffer.
I'm hoping. I don't know how I'm
right?
going to get the belt in the
in the stocking.
Santa's going to get the belt in the stocking, but we'll see.
All right. Well, I want to take a moment to thank you guys for tuning in, and of course to thank you, Joe, for joining.
Yeah, of course.
Again.
This kind of interaction is super important to us, and if you guys find it valuable, then let us know.
Yeah, let us know. I like, we would love to be able to do more things like this, and to do, kind of explore some of these other platforms like I mentioned earlier. So thanks everybody for liking, sharing, and watching and hanging out with us today. I do want to say happy holidays to our community. We really hope that you have a wonderful rest of your year. And thank you for helping us celebrate this 20th anniversary of Diablo that we have.
Absolutely.
Coming up on the 31st. That is super exciting for everybody on the team. And the anniversary event will be going live shortly thereafter. So
yeah, lock down all the changes, get everything good on PTR, and then
get it all nice and shiny and out to you guys so you can get your hands on it and go get some of those godly plates of the whale.
That's right. Slay Diablo.
Yep, slay Diablo.
Get your soul stone.
Yeah, jam it in your forehead.
That's right.
All the good stuff. Celebrate in traditional Diablo fashion.
Yeah, it's gonna be a Diablo New Year.
For sure. All right. Well, thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. We're going to head out for today, and just keep an eye on our channels for upcoming news, blogs, and stuff regarding Season 8, as well as Patch 243. And we will see you soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Goodbye. All right. So last question, and then general thoughts overall, criticisms, etc., witticisms, whatnot. Come on, camera. Okay, so last question. I'm glad that was asked, although that might be one that the community will probably like flame for or be like, oh, it's so dumb. Like, why would they end on a non-Diablo question, even though it was kind of Diablo related, but it like doesn't improve my game, so why even answer that? In any case, I think it's nice when you see the personalities. And also, oh, this was something that someone had mentioned. I don't remember the name, but earlier in chat, someone was saying that I wish it was not Joe. And that kind of ties into my feedback on this question, is that I think this is a great question, actually, because it kind of shows the personality behind just like these are the people that work on the game that you play, right? For the most part, you see them as tools to make your experience when you play a video game better. But then they're also people too, right? So this kind of brought out human element. It made laughter happen, right? It's seasonal, it's timely, etc. So I thought that was a good one to throw in there, and obviously someone wanted to ask it too as like a fun question as well. So why not, right? And Joe in particular. So this was something I think. Well, let me just say me, right? This is my thoughts on this, but I think it makes sense to diversify who you see in front of the camera because you get used to the same household names, right? Like everyone knows Wyatt at this point, right? Everyone knows Travis. Everyone knows Josh, even though he's not there anymore. Everyone knows John, even though John Yang, even though he's on a different project. So like those were the guys, right? From previous live streams, from previous blogs, etc. But for some, like Joe did a blog, and I can't remember if it was the Wrath of the Waste one. I think it was, or no, his was the Greater Rift Mechanics one. So he did a blog, right? His name was tied to it, but no one had put a face to that name yet. And so now this might actually be the first time you put that face to the name if you weren't at BlizzCon or if you didn't see the panels or things like that. So I think it's just important to keep a healthy amount of faith, especially for the people who are always like, oh, Diablo team's so small, man. Like, they have like 2 people working on this game. Well, guess what? If they show you 3 people, 4 people, 5 people, 6 people, I don't think you can say that anymore, right? So I think there's multifaceted reasons as to why it's good to see fresh faces. And Joe's a different personality, right? Like this might be one of the first things he's done like this, and he'll get better at it. Like no one is perfect at anything. I know that for certain. It takes a lot of practice before you get really good at things, skills that you don't have yet, or skills that you're still developing, etc. So it's good in my opinion to see Joe doing this, and I think he did a fine job. Now for the overall criticisms, right? Constructive criticisms. I think it's going to be okay if these are this short, if they happen frequently, right? And I don't know what a frequency is that makes it feel like it happens often. But if that's like every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, maybe more than once a month, I think would be kind of the upper limit there. But if they're going to be, because I went into this thinking it was going to be like an hour, right? And I think if it were an hour, then you would be satisfied with, okay, we got a decent amount of content out of that, so this will be longer, or so we can expect a longer lag between the next one, right? But if you're like rapid firing through the questions, and to like no one's fault, right? Like Joe might just answer things really simply or efficiently or quickly if he doesn't feel like there's like enough or more to elaborate on. If he could have gone and spun a tale, because that's like a Wyatt thing, right? Like Wyatt will spin you a whole yarn, a story. This could have been like 3 hours, right? So there's just different styles that people are going to have and whatnot, which might amount for a lot for different amounts of time taken for questions and stuff. I know for me, right? Like I can't go. You could ask me to sum this up in a minute and I would go over by 5 minutes, right? Like I am one of those types of people that will try to find 8 different words to say the exact same thing. Some people are way better at that. So I don't know. It's going to be kind of what you make of it in terms of what you got out of it. Some people feel like you can actually do more with less too, right? Like if he just like boom, boom, boom answered your questions, then you got to go about your day, especially with this whole like TLDR community that we've become. In terms of like, give me the highlights. I don't want to spend 18 hours watching a video, etc. Maybe this is better. But I think the time will be something that will be looked at and taken a few different ways. I liked that it felt more like it didn't feel rehearsed. It didn't have like a, here are the 8 questions and I hope you look at them and study your answers and stuff. Like it felt very like free flowing, off the cuff, like a conversation. Because I think that's always been the best format when Brandy has done these things with the devs, when it's more of this like give and take, you know, you say something, I chat back, you respond, rather than like a here's the bright light. Like, tell me where you were when you were making patch 2.4.3 yesterday. Or, you know what I mean? Like the whole SVU interrogation style thing. So I like when it's more just like non-confrontational. I think it gives some of that, again, chance for the personalities to shine through and stuff. And I guess one of the biggest takeaways, right, is that this is a work in progress. It was literally mentioned in the second to last question that it's an experiment, something they're trying. If it's successful, received well, they might do more. So I think it's important to get your voice heard on it. Like if you feel like, hey, I liked it, but it could have done this, right? Or hey, this was okay for me, but I would have liked to see XYZ, right? Like even some of the feedback people are giving right now, right? Like hop on the Facebook page and throw some of that into the comments and stuff too, because they'll parse that and then figure out, okay, this was something that was received successfully or received positively, and here's what we can do to improve it for the next time. Like I think any content creator values and loves that attention that people give when we're trying to figure out what our next project is going to be, right? There's nothing better than having a directed focus on, okay, last time they said I used the word too much, or I chopped up my sentences too much. So this time out, I'm focusing on that. So like next time you could say, hey, I wish there were more questions. And then next time, guess what? She comes with a mountain of questions and they don't even get to all of them or something. So, it's potential for improvement, potential to do more. If it happens again, hopefully it happens again. I would love if it happened again, because I love these like insights into the process and whatnot. So hope you guys enjoyed my take on these things. It's fun to always go back and review. I actually realized that like as I was typing furiously, there were things that I missed the first time around too. So fun times. Dainty, thank you for stopping by. Take care. Hope you enjoyed listening to yourself again. You have a cool voice, by the way, so you should not dislike hearing your voice. It's pretty sweet. And okay, so there won't be another one this month, which makes perfect sense, right? Like it's the holidays, it's the shutdown. We are expecting that. But hey, maybe next year we'll have some more things to look forward to. Figuring out the pacing and the cadence. Got it. Sweet.